Your Creative Push, episode 166.
Just go and make stuff. Create. Do the things you don't want to do so you can do the things you want to do.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Joey Feldman. Joey is a mixed media artist from Los Angeles, California. His works are figurative with a frenetic, cartoonish style at their core. With line art applied to its fullest extent, Joey's initial fast-sketched lines play a role in the final piece. And Joey, first of all, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. You have such an awesome, unique style, and I was wondering if you could take us through that process, the kind of, urgency with which you paint.
Well, thanks for having me on. I love the show. I love what you're doing. I'm a big fan. So I'm honored and humbled to be here.
Of course.
In terms of what I do is I get up at 4:15 every morning and I just have this desire to create. The cat wakes me up and he starts crying and I feed him and he's kind of like, meow, meow. And I'm like, yeah, we love life. We love life. And I feed him, I make the coffee and I just get right at it because I can't. Do you remember a show called ULTRAMAN from years ago?
I don't.
Okay, well, ULTRAMAN was one of the original Power Rangers, and he would start to lose energy, and then he would have to go back to his planet if he was fighting a monster. And I kind of feel like that. If I don't get at it right away and start drawing from the second I get up, as the day progresses, I lose that energy, and by 12, 1 o'clock, I really don't want to be drawing. So, it always starts out, I sometimes don't know what I'm going to do. Sometimes I'll have a plan from the night before if it's an illustration assignment. And there's no penciling or anything. I just draw everything, and all the mistakes that are in there are kind of just in there. And I'd rather draw, several versions than pencil and then ink on top of it. I think I lose a lot of the spontaneity and the energy when I do that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that analogy, Ultraman, because it is like battling a monster sometimes. Have you always had that where you wake up ready to go, like you and your cat to take on the world?
There was a couple times in my life where I remember I didn't want to get out of bed, where, I was going through some life on life terms situations, and it was really tough to get out of bed. And I found that if I don't draw each day, I have this kind of feeling. I've kind of hammered it down, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll either be in a DDD, which is a deep, dark depression, where if I don't, immediately do something and stop my head from thinking, I'll wind up in bed watching Netflix all day. And then I'll regret it. And then there's the LGD, which is the low grade depression, which, I don't even know if this is real or not. It's just what I think about. But what it all comes down is when I get up in the morning, I'm kind of shot through a cannon, and I need to get to work right away. Because the more obstacles that get in the way, the less I'm going to create that day. And, we live in this world with so many distractions. I wake up in the morning and of course I want to check the phone. I want to see this. And it's just these hurdles to get to that drawing board. So I try to eliminate as many as I can, but I'm just as guilty, especially in this election season. I want to check, the news and all that. And it's bad because there was a time in my life when there wasn't a smartphone or a computer to go on and find out anything you need to know at any point in the day,
Yeah, the cell phone can be a very distracting appendage. It's this thing that continually just begs for your attention, and a lot of the things don't necessarily matter, or could be put off until later in your day when you kind of are feeling less creative. So I love the idea of kind of getting up and going for it. And I guess a good way to do that is to set it up to make it as easy as possible for you, the night before, just kind of setting everything up. And so you can get right to it, avoiding as many of those hurdles that you mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, the night before I clean my studio, it doesn't matter how late I stay up or whatever. I have to have it clean when I come in the next morning. There's been times where I've had assignments and there's stuff all over the place, but I don't function that well. So yeah, preparation for me it is, and what you just said, the easier I can make it for me to make the art, the better the results will be for me.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. I read about this thing about O.J. Simpson and you. Could you talk about that story?
Well, I was in Philadelphia where I used to live, and I was working at an art supply store. It was in 1994, I believe. And, I was sending my portfolio out, and I would go to a lot of artists and show them my work, and artists were great for giving me their opinions, but they weren't getting me published or paying my bills. Mm-hmm. So I decided to take my portfolio to just art directors and just say, hey, what do I have to lose, right? So OJ trial, which was grueling to go through because it was like months and months, and then all of a sudden they decided they were going to announce it. And I remember calling in. I had an old answering machine, which you would call in and you'd have to type in a code to get a message. and I typed the code in. It was an art director for Philadelphia Weekly, which was a weekly newspaper. And she said, hey, I need somebody that's quick that can get a drawing done of OJ. Can you get it done? And I said, sure. So I actually had rented a studio at the time, and I went to the studio. I worked on it overnight. I got it to her, and then it was published the next day. I remember going out at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the trucks to deliver the paper. I was so excited to see it in print. And, so that was like really, I consider that my first professional illustration assignment. And then it was actually pretty successful. So they had me do different portraits each week for a really long time in this, publication. So it worked out really well. That's
really cool. It's a very, unique first thing to do, the first professional thing to do. That's so cool.
Yeah, I didn't really have an opinion. I mean, listen, I did have an opinion, but it was, if you saw the drawing, and I lost a lot of my original work. I mean, it was a profile of OJ, and half of him was black and half of him was white. So, because there was like just so much, stuff going on with that. I didn't really know what to do with it. So.
Yeah, I just watched the OJ documentary. So interesting how that dynamic played a part of the story.
Is that the one with John Travolta?
No, so there was a show, and then there's also a documentary. It was at ESPN 30 for 30.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend watched the show. She said it was unbelievable.
Yeah, my wife did as well. Well, how about the Eminem thing, speaking of my wife, because she's like obsessed with Eminem. Can you talk about that story too?
Sure. I was going to the first Icon Illustrators Conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I got a call from, I literally was about to get on the plane, and I got a call from XXL Magazine, and they said, hey, man, we need a drawing of Eminem for the back page because his mother is suing him. She's slapping a lawsuit on him, and he doesn't like us too much, and we kind of like your style when you exaggerate, make people look ugly. Do you think you could do us a number on this? And I
make people look ugly.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I just said, yeah, sure. No problem. So I went to the illustration conference, and on the plane ride back, I was sketching, and then I came home and I stayed up like 24 hours, got it. And, I didn't have a computer. I had just found out actually at that convention, like that I should buy a new iMac. It's when the blue iMacs came out, and then they had this black graphite one. So that's what I was going to buy. I had you would FedEx in your artwork, the originals. So I FedExed it in, and I didn't really know what happened to it. And then I don't know, it was probably like about 3 weeks later. No, it was longer than that. The magazine came out, no big deal. I had the tear sheets. But then 3 months, maybe 4 months later, I'm literally laying in bed, and my friend calls me up on the phone, and he goes, dude, man, Eminem's rapping about you in that magazine. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And there was a verse. I couldn't even tell you what it was. It was kind of cool, though, because my buddy it was Eminem's second album. I think it was I'm Slim Shady or something. Mm-hmm. And he raps about, this war that he's in with Double XL magazine, and that the drawing that they better watch out because he wasn't too happy with it. And,
oh, snap.
Yeah. So that got me some street cred, and,
you just said that in the whitest non-rappery way. He's really mad about it. You better watch out.
and then a couple years later, it went down. It was the #1 controversy that magazine had gone through. So they reprinted the drawing, and I got paid again.
Oh, so cool.
And there's two cool parts to that. Well, no, one uncool part. The uncool part is the art director who worked at the time that had the drawing took the drawing and I never got it back. So I don't have the original of that either. And then I actually ran into Eminem out here in Hollywood. Whoa. And, I don't know why, but I had mentioned it to him. I said, do you remember Double XL? I did that drawing of you. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, that thing was dope. Do you want to sell it? And I'm like, oh, really? I thought you hated it. And he's like, nah, man, it's art. It's cool. But I couldn't sell it to him. So that was kind of, a cool little run-in I had with him.
Oh, it sucks you didn't have it, though, to sell to. No. He wasn't very mad at you, and you didn't have to watch out, actually.
No. But we're also, we're talking, I don't know, maybe 15 years later, 20 years later. Right. So
yeah, he had matured too.
Yeah.
And then I finally want to ask you about the recent kind of Trump cartoons that you've been doing, the hate that you've been getting about them. Speaking of people who are angry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this whole thing is insane. Listen, this is a creative push podcast, so I can't get too crazy because I don't know your point of view. I don't know the viewers. And I kind of, through the whole time of doing these Trump cartoons, I never said who, I was behind. I never came out and said, I've drawn all the politicians. But, when you look at a guy like Donald Trump, who I haven't liked for years, I never watched The Apprentice. I could care less. This guy is the walking definition of character. I mean, just if you listen to him or watch him, his whole look, the guy's orange and yellow. How could you not draw him? So I would just read these. I'd get up in the morning, I get all fired up and read some article and I would just draw my translation. But, there's some diehard people that, took that seriously. And, my religion, people found out I was Jewish. I would get, pictures. I get emails of people telling me, you're this, you're that. And it's just, it's absurd and it's crazy. And, listen, man, I take my livelihood very seriously. I take my craft seriously. I don't take everything so seriously that I can't laugh at stuff, but not everybody's like that. And I have to realize that, when you put something out there, especially on social media, that not everybody's going to laugh or think the way I'm thinking. How
do you deal with haters? How do you deal with people who, what advice can people take from, your kind of mentality about that? When somebody doesn't dig exactly, what you're putting out there, or you just get criticism about your work.
This is we could talk about this for a long time. The one thing that I know is to try not to, because I'm a super ultra sensitive, only child, artist kid, is to not compare my insides to other people's Instagrams and other people's posts. I can't get into that because I'll lose. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. Some people are just really brutal and mean. And, my style and technique, you can talk about that and I can be open about this. My mentor is Ralph Steadman. So I love Ralph's work. The way that my style kind of came about was, I always drew this way. And then somebody said to me, hey man, listen, you look like this guy who did this before the internet. So I searched him out. Bottom line is I draw a lot like him and then I don't, and I'm still looking for my voice. I do for what I like. And, no one has to like it or people can like it. So, I get, occasional, oh, you're ripping this guy off. Is he getting paid? And you know what? Sometimes it bothers me it depends how I feel that day, but I have some friends that are celebrities and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I went to them and said, how do you handle the haters and all? Mm-hmm. And my buddy said to me, he said, listen, man, if somebody came into your house and they pooped in your living room, what would you do? He said you would clean it up and ask them to leave and to never come back. So if I do get some really, really harsh comments that are on public level, I have deleted some and blocked the people. It just makes me feel better and it's my page. That's the bottom line. Other than that, sometimes I leave them up. I don't really try to pay attention. What's it going to do? I'd rather, leave really positive comments to artists that I love and respect. And some of the artists that have actually been on this show, I love their work. I'd rather fill the air with positive vibes and encourage people to produce more work than to be negative. I think it's a waste of energy. I've also found that like a lot of these people, like, you know, if you look, like if you want to really troll, you know, they've posted like 20,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have a following, and they're probably like a shadow artist, or they never pursued their career and they're jealous and they're just angry and they just take it out on you for no reason. I mean, words hurt, man. You know, and on any given day, like I said, how sensitive I am, somebody could say 2 words that changes my whole way of thinking for the good or bad. So, you know, it's just like, why I would never do that. I've come across stuff that I don't like or have an opinion of. I would never take the time to devalue or demoralize somebody on their page. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I think most people wouldn't, and you're right, it is crazy. And there's like an art form to trolling, and I think people just like love doing it. You know, it's like it's their creative push.
Yeah.
They just love to, you know, just drop shits on everybody's living room floors. And it is important to kind of realize that, you know, really see where that negativity is coming from before you take it too personally.
Right.
So aside from that kind of stuff, and aside from, you know, being a superhero that's losing his power throughout the day, are there any other things that kind of hold you back from being creative?
Well, I mean, procrastination, you know, that's constantly, and this day and age with distraction. I mean, I was never like a really good learner, even in school. You know, sometimes it takes me years to learn basic concepts. Like I could read something 20,000 times and not get it. And in one moment, I get it. I think it's just this day and age of distractions. It's what holds me back the most. Not really like any fear. The physical work, I'm always drawing. I fill up like a sketchbook a month, even if it's just garbage. If you're with me, I'm always out with a pen and a piece of paper. So it's more like, it's just that, and it's that FOMO. I learned that expression. Is that like a you know, fear of missing out? I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. And at any given day, like we all want to feel connected. I want to feel connected too, because I'm working like in my studio, and you know, from growing up, I had some bad experiences, so I generally don't like people. So when you know, but I still need to be connected because I need energy and I need to talk to other people. So you know, at any given time, we think that these phones and computers are making us connected, but yet we're just kind of like on other screens. It's, you know, so I pick up the phone, I call people and all, but it's mostly distractions. That's what prevents me most from doing my work, I would say.
I got you. Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I want to miss out on, because my wife is always like telling me about the latest thing that happened in Oklahoma. A woman like drowned her baby and then killed herself. All these like stories that I want to cherry pick my news. I only want the most important things, and I want more world encompassing type of issues rather than these like negative things to focus on. So I almost avoid the news completely because it just bums me out. So how do you battle that kind of resistance, like the wanting to be connected and wanting to be, you know, a part of it, but also not getting too sucked in so that you can live your own life as well?
We can't forget cat videos also.
Okay. Of course, the cat videos.
Very important. What do I do? Well, I took some action. I have an app. It's called Freedom. And that goes across my phone and computer, and I schedule it for certain times where I'm 46 years old, but this is what I had to do. It prevents me from getting online and to go on certain things and waste time, because what I realized, even if I go on for 2 minutes, that stops me for like maybe 20 or 30 before, you know, and I don't know. You put a mark on the paper, I go and check Twitter. I come back, I might take that mark somewhere else where I wasn't going before. And it's, you know, so I just set myself up so that I don't get involved with these distractions as best as possible, but I'm not great at it.
How does that? I've never heard of that. That's awesome. I'm going to get it. Freedom.
Yeah. And it syncs across my computer and phone, and you can set schedules up. You can block out, you know, you can specific sites, and you can select stuff. And I really dig it. And the worst thing though is there's this thing called the locked position, where if it's in the locked position, the only way you're getting in is if you're sending an email to the people that run this app.
Really?
Yeah, it's epic. check it then.
Well, what if you get an emergency situation?
You're screwed, dude.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it will let you make phone calls and stuff, right?
Well, it doesn't get rid of your phone or email and text messages. You have access to that, but like specific apps, Instagram, and websites, it definitely does block out.
Dude, I think that's really important. I think people need that. I definitely am somebody that I can't trust myself, and because sometimes I do it subconsciously. Like I'll just think of something and all of a sudden I'm on Facebook checking. I think I'm checking to see if it's somebody's birthday or some random thought, or I'm just Googling something like stupid and just going down a rabbit hole, like a 2-hour rabbit hole where I don't get anything done. And I come out of it and I'm like, wow, like what journey did I just go on, and what did I gain from this? And most of the time, the reason I went on, I didn't even accomplish that. Like you said, it's just like one thing leads to another. And then, all your
it makes you feel horrible, and
terrible,
then, And then I'll do this. I don't know if you're guilty of this. Like I'll look at the clock. Oh, it's 10:23. At 10:30, I will stop. But then I'm so caught up in something. I look and it's 10:33, and I'm like, well, I have to go to 10:45 now.
Right.
It's like this really weird OCD. And the thing with the phone, the iPhone, if you look, there's no apps that block it or shut it out, really. I mean, I've done some research. So the only thing I found was this freedom. It's almost as if they want us on these smartphones to dumb us down all day.
Whoever they are, they're getting to us.
Whoever they are, yes.
No, I think it is true that, that's what they bank on is our you don't have to pay for so much with the internet age, but you have to pay with your time. You have to watch advertisements, or you have to have like your screen inundated with ads and just you're paying with your attention. And I think that that's one of the most valuable things that we have, especially for creative people. We can't really afford to give too much of it away.
No, not at all. Time is the most valuable thing.
Absolutely, man. Well, speaking of, do you have a formula for balancing your time?
Well, like I said, I get up in the morning. I do a to-do list the night before. And I have some listed priorities. Like some stuff gets asterisks. When I mail out a lot of prints, there's certain days that I'll just do a sketchbook drawing. I won't really get into any real work because I know that I'm going to be rolling, prints and packing them and doing labels and stuff like that. So again, it all goes back to a plan, because left to my own devices, I'll find 35 other things to do if it's not written down. So, but by the afternoon, that's when I like to do the work where I don't have to think of stuff too much. Like I don't have to actually come up with any ideas. I just kind of like run, on autopilot.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like you do the most pertinent things like as soon as you can, as quick as you can, like you said, before you run out of time and energy and kind of creative juice, and then save those like busy work stuff for later. I even save most of my busy work for the weekend when I, just can completely veg out. And then usually I just watch a TV show and then go to bed. It's like this tapering off. And I think, for people that haven't kind of mastered that, it is important to do.
Yeah, I mean, I always like early in the morning or weekends when I feel like the world kind of shut down so they can't get me. So I, right. So I could do my own thing. But
right.
I meditate twice a day. And, I have like a little ritual, sort of like a prayer ritual to help me create and to do the best job I can. And I take 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night to meditate in the late afternoon. That energizes me, but it also just kind of clears the slate of my head.
Yeah, it can kind of bring you back to being a human being and not being like a head case, Yeah. I'm not calling you a head case. I'm just saying.
Well, that's okay. I've been called worse.
Do you have like a greatest inspiration or a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you draw inspiration from?
One of my favorite books, and it's a compilation of comic books, which they would call a graphic novel, which would be Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli did Daredevil Born Again. And it's about Kingpin just destroys Matt Murdock's life because his ex-porn star, heroin junkie girlfriend sells his identity to Kingpin, and he just brings Daredevil down, and then Daredevil comes back. And I love that because I relate it to my life story because I went through a really, really rough patch earlier on in my life. And I remember reading that, and it just like empowered me. But on YouTube, I love Neil Gaiman does a speech to the University of Arts about keep making art. And anytime I feel crappy, I just put Neil on because everything sounds better in in an accent.
Yeah.
So, and I put it on, and he's the best. So, it fires me up.
Yeah, there's something about accents that make them more authoritative and more trusting all at the same time.
Yes.
And I've been trying to get him on the show. I think it's impossible, but I'm just going to keep trying because he is awesome. That's a wonderful video and speech for anybody that hasn't listened. And we will link that up at the show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Joey Feldman. All right, Joey, it's time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today and just give them your best advice and really push them to pursue their creative passions.
Okay, I would probably say, hey, you, in my Philly accent. Yo, get off that Facebook or the eBays, the internets. Everything in Philly has an S.
Yep.
Get off and just go and make stuff. Create. Do the things you don't want to do so you can do the things you want to do. And be nice to people, and take that out in your art. Take it out on the paper or the canvas. One day at a time.
Yeah, that's perfect. Be nice to people and be nice to yourself, too.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it also.
Of course. And you can find Joey at his website, joeyfeldman.com. And on Instagram, he is joeyfeldman_artist. Again, we will have everything we talked about today, including links to find Joey at yourcreativepush.com/Joey Feldman. Joey, thanks again, brother.
You got it.
So much fun talking with Joey. Such a cool guy. And I love that idea of Ultraman. I think a lot of people can relate to being like Ultraman or Ultrawoman, having tons of energy in the morning when you first wake up, and the importance of just going for it right away and setting yourself up for success. Because if you don't jump right in, don't get right to your work, one thing leads to another, one distraction leads to another, and all of a sudden you find yourself having not done anything, and you're either in a deep, dark depression or a low-grade depression like Joey talked about. So just getting right to it is so important, and trying to avoid those hurdles that he talked about. Right after I talked to Joey, I was inspired to get that app, Freedom. It is so awesome. It is helping so much. And if you want to actually try it out as well, you can actually do so by going to yourcreativepush.com/freedom, and you'll actually support the show if you decide to use it. I highly recommend it. It has done so much to help me out this past week. That would be a little bit of a 2-for-1 for you. You can help yourself out tremendously, as well as helping out the show. But that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you're inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And we will be here for you on Wednesday if you need the push again. I love you all. Go get some amazing work done, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.